I've been dreaming about Alaska for years, and when I finally made it to the Kenai Peninsula and stood before those massive glaciers, I realized that no photograph, no video, no description could truly prepare me for the raw magnificence of this place. Let me take you through everything I experienced, learned, and discovered so that when you plan your own Alaskan adventure, you'll know exactly what to expect and how to make the most of every single moment in this wilderness paradise. My journey began at Anchorage, where I landed after what felt like flying to the edge of the world. The moment I stepped off that plane, the air felt different, crisp, clean, and somehow charged with possibility. I picked up my rental car, made sure I had all my gear secured, and started the drive down the Seward Highway toward the Kenai Peninsula. This drive alone, which takes about 2.5 hours if you don't stop, ended up taking me nearly 5 hours because I couldn't help but pull over at every scenic viewpoint. The Turnagain Arm stretched out beside me, its waters reflecting the mountains that seemed to rise straight out of the sea. I watched Dall sheep perched impossibly on cliff faces and spotted belugas breaching in the distance. The Kenai Peninsula is like Alaska in miniature, containing everything that makes this state legendary within a relatively accessible area. I'm talking about temperate rainforests that transition into alpine tundra within miles, fishing streams so abundant with salmon that the water seems to boil with their movement, and glaciers that calve icebergs the size of houses into pristine fjords. What struck me most was how everything here exists on a scale that challenges your normal frame of reference. Trees that would be impressive anywhere else seem dwarfed by mountains. Mountains that would dominate any other landscape are overshadowed by massive ice fields stretching to the horizon. I based myself in Seward for the first part of my trip, and I cannot recommend this charming coastal town enough. With a population of around 3,000 people, Seward manages to feel both welcoming and wild at the same time. The town sits at the head of Resurrection Bay, surrounded by mountains on 3 sides and the Gulf of Alaska on the 4th. I stayed at a small bed and breakfast run by a former fisherman and his wife, and every morning I woke up to the smell of fresh salmon and sourdough pancakes while bald eagles circled outside my window. The hosts gave me insider tips that no guidebook could match, like which trails were currently closed due to bear activity and where I could find the best tide pooling spots. My first major excursion was to Exit Glacier, part of the Kenai Fjords National Park, and this became my introduction to how climate change is reshaping Alaska in real time. The short drive from Seward to the Exit Glacier Nature Center took me through a valley carved by ancient ice, and interpretive signs along the road marked where the glacier's terminus had been in different years. I parked at the Nature Center and took the main trail, which is paved and accessible, making it perfect for families or anyone with mobility concerns. The walk is easy, maybe half a mile, and it brings you right to the face of this massive river of ice. Standing there, hearing the glacier groan and crack as it slowly flows down from the Harding ice field, I felt humbled by the forces of nature at work. The ice had this otherworldly blue color in places, a result of compressed ice absorbing all colors of the spectrum, except blue. I spent at least an hour just sitting on the rocks, watching and listening. Chunks of ice would occasionally break off with sounds like thunder, splashing into the meltwater stream below. But I wanted more than the standard tourist experience. So the next day, I returned to Exit Glacier for the Harding Icefield Trail, which is consistently rated as one of the most challenging and rewarding day hikes in Alaska. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The trail is brutal. It's about 8.5 miles round trip with over 3,000 feet of elevation gain, most of which happens in the first couple of miles. I started at 7 in the morning, armed with layers of clothing, plenty of water, energy bars, bear spray, and my camera equipment. The trail begins in lush, temperate rainforest, winding through forests of Sitka spruce and western hemlock. Devil's Club plants with their nasty spines lined the path, and I could hear Steller's jays calling from the canopy. As I climbed, the forest gradually gave way to alpine meadows bursting with wildflowers. In late June when I visited, I found lupines, forget-me-nots, paintbrush, and dozens of other species creating carpets of color against the green slopes. The views started opening up, and I could see Exit Glacier below me, looking like a frozen highway descending from the mountains. The final push to the ice field was the hardest part, traversing steep snowfield that required careful footing. I met other hikers coming down who warned me about the conditions ahead, and we shared that camaraderie that forms between people pushing themselves in wild places. When I finally crested the ridge and saw the Harding ice field stretching before me, I literally gasped out loud. This massive field of ice covers over 700 square miles, feeding over 40 glaciers that flow down in every direction. The ice seemed to extend forever, an endless expanse of white and blue under the summer sun. I found a protected spot among the rocks, ate my lunch, and just stared in wonder. A few hardy pikas, those adorable high-altitude relatives of rabbits, chirped at me from the talus slopes. I stayed up there for nearly 2 hours, not wanting to leave, knowing this was a sight that would stay with me forever. The descent was tough on my knees, and I didn't make it back to my car until late afternoon, completely exhausted, but filled with a sense of accomplishment that made every sore muscle worth it. The next day, needing something less strenuous, I booked a boat tour of Kenai Fjords National Park, and this turned out to be one of the absolute highlights of my entire trip. I went with Major Marine Tours, which operates out of Seward, though several excellent companies run similar trips. The tour I chose was the full-day Northwestern Fjord Cruise, departing at 9 in the morning and returning around 6 in the evening. I dressed in layers just as everyone recommended, because even in summer, being out on the water in Alaska means dealing with cold winds and spray. The boat was comfortable with both indoor heated cabin space and outdoor decks for wildlife viewing and photography. We hadn't even left Resurrection Bay before we encountered our first wildlife. A pod of orcas, including several calves, swam past the boat, their distinctive black and white patterns unmistakable even in the gray water. Everyone rushed to one side of the boat, and the captain expertly kept us at a respectful distance while still allowing for incredible views. These apex predators moved with such grace and power, surfacing in coordinated patterns that spoke to their sophisticated social structure. I managed to get some decent photos, though I mostly just watched, trying to cement the memory in my mind rather than experience it entirely through a lens. As we ventured deeper into the fjords, the landscape became increasingly dramatic. Sheer cliff faces rose thousands of feet straight out of the water, draped with waterfalls that tumbled down in silver ribbons. The captain explained that these fjords were carved by glaciers during the last ice age, when ice sheets, thousands of feet thick, ground their way through the mountains to the sea. Now, with the glaciers retreated, seawater floods these deep valleys, creating the perfect habitat for an incredible diversity of marine life. We spotted sea otters floating on their backs, cracking open sea urchins on rocks balanced on their bellies. Harbor seals lounged on ice floes, their spotted coats providing surprisingly effective camouflage against the blue-white ice. The bird life was spectacular. Puffins, both tufted and horned varieties, zipped past on whirring wings, their colorful beaks making them look like flying clowns. Black-legged kittiwakes nested on tiny ledges on the cliff faces, their calls echoing across the water. I saw common murres, pigeon guillemots, and even a marbled murrelet, a species that nests in old-growth forests and feeds at sea. The boat's naturalist pointed out every species and shared fascinating details about their behaviors and adaptations to this challenging environment. But the real showstopper came when we reached Northwestern Glacier, one of the most active tidewater glaciers in the park. The captain cut the engines about a quarter-mile from the glacier's face, and we sat in silence except for the sounds of ice groaning, cracking, and occasionally calving into the fjord. The face of the glacier towered above us, at least 200 feet tall, a wall of ancient ice streaked with blue and white. The naturalist explained that the ice we were looking at fell as snow during the Renaissance, compressed over centuries into glacial ice, and was now, after an unimaginably long journey down from the mountains, finally reaching the sea. We waited patiently, and our patience was rewarded with the massive calving event. A house-sized chunk of ice broke away from the glacier face with a sound like an explosion, crashing into the water and sending up a huge splash and waves that rocked our boat even from our distant position. The newly exposed ice face glowed with that intense blue color that seems to come from another world. Smaller pieces continued to break off, and the water around the glacier's face was choked with ice fragments called brash ice, creating a constantly shifting maze that seals used as resting platforms. The captain pointed out that we were witnessing a natural process that has been occurring for millions of years, but one that's accelerating due to climate change. These glaciers are retreating at rates that would have been unimaginable just decades ago. Lunch was served on board, a surprisingly delicious meal of wild salmon, rice pilaf, and roasted vegetables, accompanied by the captain's narration about the glacial history of the region. I learned that during the last ice age, ice covered almost all of Alaska, and the glaciers here are just remnants of those vast ice sheets. As we made our way back toward Seward, we encountered humpback whales, several of them bubble net feeding just off our bow. This cooperative hunting technique, where whales use curtains of bubbles to concentrate fish before lunging upward with mouths open, is one of nature's most impressive displays. We watched 3 humpbacks working together, their enormous bodies erupting from the water with throats expanded, water and fish streaming from their baleen plates. Every time I thought I'd seen the most amazing thing, Alaska delivered something even more spectacular. Back in Seward, I spent an evening at the Alaska Sea Life Center, which I initially thought might be a tourist trap, but turned out to be an excellent research and rehabilitation facility with really well-designed exhibits. I watched Steller sea lions play underwater, their agility and speed surprising for animals that can weigh over 2,000 pounds. Puffins swam past the viewing windows using their wings to literally fly underwater. The center's staff members were passionate and knowledgeable, happy to answer questions and share stories about individual animals in their care. I learned about the center's research on ocean acidification and its effects on Alaska's marine ecosystems. A sobering reminder that these incredible places face real threats. After several days in Seward, I drove north to explore other parts of the Kenai Peninsula. The Sterling Highway took me through forests of spruce and birch, past countless lakes and rivers famous for their fishing. I stopped in the small town of Cooper Landing, situated at the confluence of the Kenai and Russian rivers, and spent an afternoon watching salmon fight their way upstream to spawn. The water was absolutely thick with sockeye salmon. Their bodies turned bright red as their spawning colors developed. Fishermen lined the banks, and I watched the careful dance of landing fish while following Alaska's strict regulations designed to maintain these incredible runs for future generations. I drove out to Homer at the southern tip of the peninsula, specifically to experience the famous Homer Spit, a narrow 4.5-mile long gravel bar that juts out into Kachemak Bay. Homer calls itself the halibut fishing capital of the world, and the Spit is lined with charter fishing operations, restaurants, and galleries. The small-town vibe, combined with the stunning location with mountains and glaciers visible across the bay, made Homer feel like a place where I could happily spend weeks exploring. I took a water taxi across Kachemak Bay to Halibut Cove, a tiny artistic community accessible only by boat, where I wandered along boardwalks connecting houses and galleries, all built on pilings above the water. The galleries featured local artists inspired by their surroundings, and I bought a small watercolor of the view across the bay to the Kenai Mountains. But I wasn't done with Glaciers yet. I had been saving one of the most famous glacier experiences for the middle of my trip, a flight over the glaciers with a landing on one. I booked with Sheldon Air Service, one of several companies offering flight-seeing tours out of the Kenai Peninsula, and this became, hands down, the most expensive single activity of my trip, but also the most unforgettable. We took off in a small propeller plane fitted with special landing gear for glacier landings and within minutes we were flying over terrain that looked like another planet. The pilot, whose family has been flying these routes for generations, narrated our flight over headsets, pointing out features and sharing stories about Alaska aviation history. Below us, glaciers flowed down from massive ice fields, their surfaces crevassed and broken, rivers of ice moving imperceptibly slowly toward the sea or toward the land where they would eventually melt. From the air, I could see the lateral and medial moraines, dark stripes of rock and debris carried along by the glacier's movement. We flew over the Harding ice field again, and seeing it from above gave me an entirely different perspective than my ground-level view from the hiking trail. The pilot pointed out nunataks, mountain peaks that protrude through the ice, and explained how these become islands of life in the ice field, refuges for plants and animals that can survive the extreme conditions. Then we descended toward a glacier's upper reaches, and I felt my stomach flip as the pilot lined up for landing. We touched down on the snow and ice so smoothly I barely felt it. And then we were stopped on a glacier at over 4,000 feet elevation, surrounded by mountains and ice in every direction. The pilot gave us strict instructions about staying within certain boundaries, as glaciers are dangerous with hidden crevasses and unstable ice. But within our safe zone, we were free to explore for about 40 minutes. I stepped out of the plane into complete silence, except for the wind, a profound quiet that city dwellers like me rarely experience. The ice stretched away in every direction, and I could see the blue crevasses where the glacier had pulled apart as it flowed over uneven bedrock. The surface was covered with a thin layer of granular snow called névé, the transitional state between fresh snow and glacial ice. I touched the ice, ran my hands over it, trying to comprehend the reality that I was standing on snow that fell from the sky potentially hundreds of years ago. The pilot took photos of us with our cameras, knowing that moments like these need to be documented, but I also spent time just standing and breathing and being present. The sun was warm on my face despite the cold air, and I could feel both the enormity of the landscape and my own smallness in it. We saw no other signs of human presence, no contrails, no distant buildings, nothing but wilderness in every direction. This was Alaska, as it has existed for millennia, and I felt profoundly grateful to witness it. The flight back took us over different terrain, and we spotted mountain goats on impossibly steep slopes, and even a black bear ambling along a ridge line. The pilot dipped the wings in gentle turns so both sides of the plane could get good views, and I shot dozens of photos and videos, knowing that nothing would truly capture what I was seeing, but wanting some record anyway. Back at the airport, back on solid ground, I felt like I had been to another world and returned, fundamentally changed by the experience. I spent another day exploring the Resurrection Pass Trail, one of Alaska's most popular multi-day backpacking routes. Though I only did a day hike portion rather than the full 39-mile traverse, the trail climbs through forests into alpine country with expansive views of mountains and valleys. I hiked about 6 miles in, far enough to escape most of the day hikers and find some solitude. Alpine lakes reflected the sky, and I saw fresh bear scat on the trail, a reminder that this is bear country and vigilance is essential. I made noise as I hiked, calling out periodically and clapping my hands, standard bear safety protocol. The wildflowers were at their peak, painting entire hillsides with color, and I took my time, stopping frequently to just look around and soak in the beauty. I also made time for some cultural experiences. In Seward, I visited the Resurrection Bay Historical Society Museum, housed in an old railroad building where I learned about the town's history as a gold rush port and fishing community. I learned about the devastating 1964 earthquake, the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in North America, which destroyed much of Seward and created tsunamis that reshaped the coastline. I watched a documentary about commercial fishing in Alaska and gained new appreciation for the people who make their living from these dangerous waters. In Homer, I attended a performance at the Pier 1 Theater, Alaska's oldest continuous operating theater, where local actors performed a play about Alaska homesteaders with humor and heart. The fishing culture throughout the Kenai Peninsula fascinated me. Even though I didn't go sport fishing myself, I spent time talking with fishermen and learning about the different salmon species that return to these waters. The salmon runs are legendary. Sockeye, king, silver, pink, and chum salmon all return to the rivers where they were born, fighting their way upstream against the current over obstacles, driven by an instinct so powerful that they die in the effort after spawning. I watched fish that had made this journey, their bodies battered and scarred, holding in pools before making the next push upstream. There's something deeply moving about witnessing this cycle of life and death playing out on such a massive scale. I also spent time just driving the back roads, exploring logging roads, and pulling off at random viewpoints. Some of my favorite moments came from these unplanned stops. A moose browsing willows by a stream, its massive antlers still in velvet. A fox trotting across a meadow with a vole in its mouth. Sunset, turning the mountains gold and pink. I learned to slow down, to embrace the Alaska pace where schedules matter less than opportunity. If you see something interesting, you stop. If the light is beautiful, you wait and watch. This is a different way of experiencing travel. More contemplative and less about checking boxes on an itinerary. The weather in Alaska is famously unpredictable, and I experienced the full range during my visit. I had glorious sunny days with temperatures in the 60s, perfect for hiking and being outside all day. I had gray, drizzly days where clouds hung low in the valleys and everything felt mysterious and moody. I had one day of solid rain where I mostly stayed inside reading and planning the next part of my trip. The locals have a saying that if you don't like the weather in Alaska, just wait 5 minutes. I found this to be surprisingly accurate, with the weather systems moving through rapidly. Blue sky giving way to rain, giving way to sunshine again in the span of an hour. I made a point to experience the midnight sun, or rather the extended twilight that passes for night in Alaska during summer. In late June, the sun barely dips below the horizon, and even at midnight, there's enough light to read by. I took a late evening hike at 11 p.m., surrounded by birdsong and wildflowers, the light soft and golden. This endless day took some adjustment. I found myself staying up later than I meant to, fooled by the persistent daylight. but it also meant more time to explore, more hours to experience everything Alaska offered. Food in Alaska deserves mention because it was far better than I expected. Fresh salmon appeared on nearly every menu, prepared in countless ways. I had salmon chowder, grilled salmon, salmon ceviche, smoked salmon, and blackened salmon. And none of it ever felt repetitive because each preparation showcased the fish differently. I tried halibut and black cod and rockfish, all caught locally. I discovered reindeer sausage, which has a rich, slightly gamey flavor that I grew to love. Wild berry jams made from local blueberries, salmon berries, and nagoon berries added unique flavors to breakfast toast. I even tried a kutak, sometimes called Eskimo ice cream, a traditional Alaska native food made from berries, animal fat, and sometimes fish. It's definitely an acquired taste, but I appreciated the chance to experience traditional foods. The coffee culture in Alaska surprised me. Small towns that you wouldn't expect to have any coffee options had drive-through espresso stands serving excellent coffee drinks. I learned that Alaska has the highest per capita coffee consumption in the United States. Probably because those long, dark winters require copious amounts of caffeine. I spent mornings in small cafes talking with locals, hearing their stories about living in Alaska, learning what it takes to make a life in this challenging but rewarding place. Many people come to Alaska for a summer or a season and never leave, seduced by the wilderness and the lifestyle. Others come and can't handle the winters or the isolation and leave as quickly as they arrived. There's a self-selecting nature to Alaskans. The people who stay are those who genuinely love this place and all it demands. I visited the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center about an hour south of Anchorage, where I saw up close many of the animals I'd been hoping to spot in the wild. This center rescues injured and orphaned animals that cannot be released back into the wild, giving visitors a chance to see bears, moose, caribou, bison, musk oxen, and other species in large natural enclosures. While I always prefer seeing animals in truly wild settings, the center does important conservation work and provides educational opportunities that help people understand and appreciate Alaska's wildlife. A massive brown bear named Jake, who was orphaned as a cub, put on quite a show standing on his hind legs and showing just how enormous these animals can grow. The musk oxen, with their shaggy, prehistoric appearance, looked like they'd walked right out of the Ice Age. I did eventually see bears in the wild, though not as many as I'd hoped. I spotted a black bear from the highway, digging for roots in a meadow about 100 yards away. I watched through binoculars as it methodically worked its way across the slope, occasionally standing to look around before dropping back to all fours to continue digging. Black bears are generally much less aggressive than brown bears, but I kept my distance and observed from the safety of my car. I also saw what I'm fairly certain was a grizzly bear, though it was far enough away that I couldn't be completely sure, ambling along a ridgeline silhouetted against the sky. Every time I hiked, I remained bear-aware, carrying bear spray, making noise, and staying alert. Fortunately, I never had any dangerous encounters, though hearing stories from locals about bear interactions kept me respectfully cautious. The small communities throughout the Kenai Peninsula each had their own character. Girdwood, home to Alaska's premier ski resort, felt like a mountain town anywhere with its outdoor gear shops and brew pubs. Soldotna, the peninsula's largest town, functioned as a service hub with supermarkets and gas stations. Ninilchik, with its old Russian Orthodox church on a bluff overlooking the ocean, preserved remnants of Alaska's Russian colonial history. Seldovia, accessible only by boat or plane from Homer, maintained a quiet isolation that felt like stepping back in time. Each place had stories, had people who loved it enough to live there despite the challenges, had its own relationship with the wilderness surrounding it. I made a point to learn about Alaska Native history and contemporary life. The Kenai Peninsula is traditional territory of the Dena'ina Athabaskan people who have lived here for thousands of years. I visited the Kanaitsa Indian Tribe's offices in Kenai and learned about efforts to preserve and revitalize the Dena'ina language and traditional practices. I learned about the complex history of colonization, first by Russians in the 1700s, then by Americans after the Alaska Purchase in 1867. I learned about the ongoing struggles and successes of Alaska Native communities as they balance traditional ways of life with modern economic realities. This history adds important context to any visit to Alaska, reminding us that this land has been home to people long before it became a tourist destination. As my time on the Kenai Peninsula drew toward an end, I found myself making lists of things I wanted to return for. I wanted to come back in winter when the landscape transforms under deep snow and the northern lights dance overhead. I wanted to return in fall when the tundra turns brilliant red and gold. I wanted to spend more time hiking, fishing, kayaking, exploring. Alaska has a way of getting under your skin, making everywhere else feel a little less alive, a little less vivid. The wildness here, the sense that nature operates on its own terms and humans are just visitors, feels essential somehow. A reminder of what we stand to lose if we don't protect these places. I spent my final evening in Alaska sitting on the beach in Seward, watching the sun paint the mountains across Resurrection Bay in shades of pink and purple. A bald eagle perched on a piling about 50 yards away, completely unbothered by my presence. The water lapped gently at the shore, and I could see fishing boats heading back to harbor after a day on the water. I thought about everything I'd seen and experienced over the past couple of weeks, the glaciers and wildlife and landscapes that had exceeded my highest expectations. I thought about the people I'd met, the stories I'd heard, the way Alaska demands both respect and humility from those who visit. For anyone planning a trip to Alaska, to the Kenai Peninsula specifically, or to see glaciers generally, I have some practical advice born from my experience. First, come prepared for any weather. Even in summer, temperatures can range from the 40s to the 70s, and rain is always possible. Layering is essential. I lived in merino wool base layers, fleece mid layers, and a waterproof shell. Good hiking boots are non-negotiable if you plan to do any trails. Bring more warm clothes than you think you'll need, because being cold ruins everything. Second, understand that distances in Alaska are deceptive. What looks like a short drive on a map might take much longer on winding roads, and you'll want to stop frequently for wildlife and scenery. Build flexibility into your schedule. Some of my best experiences happened because I was willing to deviate from my plan when something interesting appeared. That said, book major activities like boat tours and flight seeing in advance, especially if you're traveling during the peak summer season. These popular tours fill up quickly. Third, take wildlife safety seriously. This is not a Disney movie. These are real wild animals that can be dangerous. Carry bear spray and know how to use it. Make noise when hiking. Store food properly. Keep your distance from all wildlife. No matter how cute or seemingly docile, a moose can kill you just as surely as a bear if you get too close, especially if it's a cow with calves. Respect the animals and give them space. Fourth, prepare for the expense. Alaska is not a budget destination. Gas prices are higher, food costs more, activities are pricey. But in my opinion, it's worth every penny. Where else can you see calving glaciers from a boat? Stand on a glacier yourself, watch whales feeding, hike through wildflower meadows under midnight sun, and potentially see bears, moose, eagles, and countless other species all in one trip. The experiences you gain justify the cost. Fifth, consider the timing of your visit carefully. Summer, roughly late May through early September, offers the best weather and full accessibility to everything. June and July give you the longest days and wildflowers at their peak. August brings ripe berries and the beginning of fall colors. September offers fewer crowds and beautiful autumn colors, but with increasing chances of rain and snow. Each season has advantages, but summer is definitely the easiest time for a first visit. Sixth, embrace the unpredictability. Weather might force changes to your plans. A trail might be closed because of bears. The boat tour might get rescheduled. This is Alaska, where nature rules and humans adapt. Go with the flow, maintain a good attitude, and remember that sometimes the detours lead to the best stories. That unexpected rainy day when you can't hike might become a cozy afternoon reading in a cafe, which might lead to a conversation with a local who tells you about a hidden spot you would have otherwise missed. I'd also encourage people to look beyond just the headline attractions. Yes, see the glaciers. They're incredible and worth the trip alone. But also, take time for the small moments. Watch salmon in a stream. Identify wildflowers. Talk to locals in coffee shops. Browse the small galleries and shops. Try local food. Read the interpretive signs. Attend a ranger program. The full experience of Alaska comes from accumulation of details, not just the big Instagram moments. For photographers, Alaska is paradise, but it's also challenging. The scale of landscapes makes it hard to convey in a single image. I've found that including foreground elements helped give a sense of depth and dimension. Wildlife photography requires patience and often telephoto lenses. I used a 70-300mm lens for most wildlife shots. The extended daylight hours of summer mean beautiful light early and late, but the midday sun can be harsh. I shot a lot during the golden hours and twilight periods, and be prepared for moisture and cold to affect your equipment. I kept cameras in waterproof bags when not in use and always had lens cloths handy for water spots. Looking back on my Alaska adventure now, I'm struck by how transformative it was. I came seeking scenery and adventure, and I found those in abundance. But I also found something deeper, a sense of connection to the natural world that's increasingly rare in our modern lives. Standing before a calving glacier, watching the ice that fell as snow centuries ago finally complete its journey to the sea, I felt connected to deep time, to processes that dwarf human concerns. Watching bears and moose and eagles going about their lives, I was reminded that we share this planet with countless other species, all trying to survive and thrive in their own ways. Alaska challenges you. It demands that you slow down, pay attention, adapt to conditions beyond your control. It rewards those who approach it with respect and humility. It reveals itself slowly, layer by layer, saving its best moments for those willing to venture beyond the easy tourist paths. The Kenai Peninsula and its glaciers represent Alaska in accessible form, a place where you can experience genuine wilderness without extreme difficulty, where spectacular scenery coexists with reasonable infrastructure and services. Would I recommend Alaska, and specifically the Kenai Peninsula, to other travelers? Absolutely, without reservation. But I'd tell them to come with realistic expectations. This isn't a luxury resort vacation with everything catered and comfortable. It's an adventure that will push you, surprise you, occasionally frustrate you, and ultimately change you. Come prepared to be flexible, to embrace uncertainty, to accept that nature operates on its own schedule. Come ready to be amazed by scenery that defies description and wildlife that reminds you why conservation matters. Come willing to learn, to listen, to respect both the land and the people who call it home. The glaciers of Alaska are melting, retreating, changing. The exit glacier has lost hundreds of feet of length in recent decades. The northwestern glacier, so dramatic when I saw it calving, continues to shrink each year. Future generations may not be able to see what I saw, may inherit a fundamentally altered landscape where these rivers of ice exist only in photographs and memories. This urgency, this sense that we're witnessing something that may not last, adds poignancy to every glacier view, every wilderness experience. It makes the case for visiting now, while these wonders still exist in their magnificent but fragile state. But it also demands that we act as responsible stewards, supporting conservation efforts, reducing our carbon footprints, protecting these wild places for those who come after us. My Alaska journey taught me about the natural world, but it also taught me about myself. I learned that I'm stronger and more capable than I thought when I pushed myself up that brutal trail to the Harding ice field. I learned that I can sit quietly and patiently when conditions demand it, waiting for wildlife or weather. I learned to appreciate the expertise and knowledge of guides and naturalists who've spent lifetimes studying these places. I learned that some of life's best moments come unplanned and unexpected, gifts from the universe for those paying attention. If you're reading this while planning your own Alaska adventure, I hope my experiences help you prepare and inspire you to take the leap. Alaska will challenge you, amaze you, and likely change you. The Kenai Peninsula offers an ideal introduction to Alaska's grandeur, combining accessibility with authentic wilderness, spectacular scenery with comfortable services. The glaciers, those massive rivers of ice flowing down from hidden ice fields, represent nature operating on a scale that humbles human concerns. Watching them, standing before them, even landing on them if you choose that adventure, will give you perspectives that last long after you've returned home. Pack your bags, book your tickets, prepare your gear, and get ready for an adventure that will become a defining memory of your life. Alaska awaits, wild and beautiful and utterly unforgettable.